American journalist Kara Swisher is known for covering some of the biggest news in the tech space, and now she's written a new book that lifts the lid on her decades of work covering the business of the internet. She takes us through the successes and failures of some of the biggest names in tech and doesn't hold back from naming names. The book is part love story, part origin story, and part scathing indictment of the tech world. I spoke with Kara Swisher about her book and the motivation behind writing it.
I actually didn't want to write it the way I wrote it as a memoir. I had been offered lots and lots of books about tech and all the different companies, and I had written the AOL book at the beginning of my career, which I thought was important to introduce people to the internet, essentially. But I didn't want to do it as a memoir. At the same time, I'm the only person who really covered these guys, and they're all guys, before they started, right? And I knew them when they were little, and I knew them when they were startups. And I felt like I had a unique perspective that very few people did, almost no one had, of all the leaders and what they became.
And the arc of it is exactly as you described, and it's weaved throughout the book, where they are young, maybe naive, but they're heroes and they have good intentions. And then
I don't know about
somewhere,
heroes.
well,
I'm not sure
they
about
had
heroes.
heroic intentions, maybe.
Sure.
And then, they sort of become the villains in the end.
Yeah, some of them do, not all of them for sure. But I think it's the idea of what happens, the deleterious effects of wealth, what happens when you get too much power, what happens when everybody agrees with you, what happens when you don't have responsibility for the inventions you create. You may be innovative, but if your inventions have negative effects and you don't do anything about them, it shows something about you as a character. In the broader scheme of things.
I feel like Elon Musk is an example of that arc, and you've certainly had your run-ins and your interactions with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I've interviewed him more than almost anybody. I think long, substantive interviews. We did a bunch over the many years I've known him. And I was super impressed with the stuff he was doing at the beginning. Not the very beginning. It was just yellow pages online. It wasn't that impressive. But, definitely Tesla and SpaceX were super impressive. And some of the others were far afield, but interesting. And I think what happened is something went toxic when he bought Twitter. He was already tending in that direction after COVID. He had all these sort of conspiracy theories started and things like that. And, increasingly with his power became a version of mania, I guess, power mania.
Is that your assessment of what happened, that he wasn't sort of hiding who he was before,
No.
that this has been a transformation? And it seems like you've seen a lot of these transformations.
Yeah, I think it was a transformation. There's all kinds of elements. As I said, COVID, I think, did something to his brain, like a lot of people's. It wasn't, I don't mean physical brain, but just his mentality. I think, the power, the money, he always had, sort of a grandiose personality, but they all do, right? They're not all, they're all in some version of him. He had elements of this, so like kind of a ridiculous, stupid jokes he likes to make, and, usually around sexual jokes and things like that. He always was like that, but it wasn't a major part of his personality. The major part of his personality was creating these companies. But, it took over, and especially as he shed people who disagreed with him, like Reid Hoffman or Sam Altman or me or anybody else. He shed people who disagreed with him all the time.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, especially Sam Altman, because, the moment in time that the book is coming out is where it feels like we're on the forefront of a whole new world with artificial intelligence. So is this kind of serving as a warning?
Well, I don't know. You never know how people change. And again, money really does have an impact, and power does, right? And unaccountable power. And it depends on the person. I don't think Sam Altman's in the same position Elon is in. Elon has, many companies that are critical. Sam is running one company, of which there are many competitors. So I don't think he controls AI by any stretch. But that said, we have to be careful with all of these people and their inability to share power and also have unaccountable power without any government intervention. And that's the issue. Is government used to be was the counterweight to a lot of this stuff, and government has been almost non-existent when it comes to tech people.
I know we're still trying to regulate, is Facebook a media company? Never mind these larger questions about what AI does. How do you think about the election and what that means for the path?
Well, it used to be we had a certain system of media, and it wasn't perfect by any stretch. It was controlled by a small group of people. And so it's not any better, but at the same time, there were all kinds of libel laws and everything else that controlled regular media, or what you would think of as regular media. I think it's all media myself. And now these people are protected, at least in the United States, they are, by two things: the First Amendment, and also Section 230, which gives them broad immunity from any liability. And so you don't even have a legal means of dealing with them. Regular people don't have a legal means of suing them. And so, here in this country, Fox News got sued and had to pay a price. But Facebook, not at all.
When you think about, you mentioned kind of Sam Altman, have you come to a conclusion about his intentions, his ability to bring AI to light as mostly a force for positive?
I don't think that's his job. I think it's the government's job to make sure he does that. He wants to make money. I'm sorry. I think one of the things we tend to do is make these people into romantic figures of change in society. They're not elected. They're not accountable. They may be good. Some of them are. Reid Hoffman, I couldn't say more about, but he's not elected. He shouldn't be making decisions like that, and neither should Sam Altman. And so our government, or all the governments, need to step in and create guidelines and guideposts and rules and regulations and things like that. So I think they're there to make money. So I'm not really one of these people that want to depend on the kindness of a billionaire. I sure don't.
Well, I think that's interesting because to start out the book, you talk about how you were surprised.
The first line.
Yeah,
it's the first line of the book.
Yes, exactly. You're surprised at how many people were willing to go and sit down with Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, I wasn't surprised. They're in it for the money. So that's the point. So it was capitalism after all. Anything that's in their self-interest they're going to do. But I don't expect anything less of them. I never thought they were heroes. I thought they were money makers. And so, the thing is, there's an idolatry of innovators that is taken over. And it's just not where we should be placing. We should be placing our trust in the people we elect, and that those we insult constantly. And meanwhile, we praise people who we have no control over. I don't understand it, but they're interesting. They're rich. Okay.
Well, and it makes for interesting journalism, which you've certainly built your career on. And that's actually, it's kind of inside baseball, but I would just love to get your perspective on an industry that is very challenged, which is journalism. Tech companies are partly to blame. They sucked a lot of those ad dollars away. And yet you did build an empire that was based on—
I don't know if it's an empire.
Well, that was based on, I know you don't like the phrase truth to power, but what's the future? What's the right way to make sure that truth still comes out in this day and age?
Yeah, there's a lot of little stuff happening, whether it's Platformer with Casey Newton or Jessica Lesson's The Information or Puck. There's all kinds of really, all across Canada, all kinds of interesting little organizations that are great because they keep costs in line with revenues, right? So you can operate very nimbly. That's not gonna take place of the giant newspapers like the New York Times or the Washington Post, which is in real trouble these days because of controversies around its publisher. But, and the money they're not making. But those are big, expensive organizations to run. So given everything's been knocked out, whether it's classifieds or display advertising, or this whole business model has been knocked out, what's the business model for big organizations in the future? Cable networks, big newspapers, big media organizations. There's a lot of promising small ones, and they're very powerful. I mean, I operate by myself. And I think I have a lot of influence, but largely by myself. So, you can't be all small little people like running little news organizations. Although maybe that's fine too. I think it's just we need to have a better idea of how we can improve the economics of these larger organizations.